You're watching South Asia Newsline, and here are the top stories we are tracking for you on Friday, the 28th of February. India-EU forge stronger ties as PM Modi and European Commission President discuss trade deal. Pakistanis struggle with Ramadan price hikes despite claims of lower inflation. And UN Rapporteur says gender apartheid in Afghanistan should be considered a crime against humanity. And now for all the details. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Friday held delegation-level talks with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and reaffirmed India's commitment to deepening its strategic and economic partnership with the European Union. The high-level meeting, which comes amid rising geopolitical tensions, underscores India's growing influence on the global stage and its role as a key economic powerhouse.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen reaffirmed the deepening strategic partnership between India and the European Union during bilateral talks on Friday. Both leaders announced significant progress in trade negotiations, aiming to conclude the India-EU Free Trade Agreement by the end of the year. Discussions also focused on reducing trade barriers, improving market access, and finalizing agreements on investment protection and geographical indications. With India's Aadhaar and the EU digital wallet serving billions, the leaders agreed to enhance digital connectivity and cooperation. They also announced plans for joint research on green hydrogen and marine plastics, reinforcing their shared commitment to sustainable development.
Friends, भारत और EU की 2 दशकों की स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप नेचुरल है, ऑर्गेनिक है। इसके मूल में ट्रस्ट है, लोकतांत्रिक मूल्यों में साझा विश्वास है, शेयर्ड प्रोग्रेस और प्रॉस्पेरिटी के लिए साझा कमिटमेंट है।
The potential is immense. Europe is already India's biggest trading partner. Last year alone, we exchanged 120 billion worth of goods, and over the past 2 decades, our trade has tripled.
This marks the first ever visit of the EU College of Commissioners to India and their first official trip outside Europe. India and the European Union share a long-standing, multifaceted partnership that has expanded significantly over the years. The EU remains India's largest trading partner, with bilateral trade surpassing $120 billion in 2023. As both sides commit to deeper engagement, the India-EU partnership is set to become a key global force in trade, technology, and security, defining international relations in the 21st century.
Meanwhile, India on Thursday reiterated its demands for urgent reforms in the United Nations Security Council, calling out the opacity in its decision-making process, particularly in listing rejections, which it terms a disguised veto. Addressing the intergovernmental negotiations plenary cluster debate on working methods, India's permanent representative to the UN, Parvathaneni Harish, said that with growing global apprehensions about the UN's ability to deliver, the demand for reforms is loud and clear. Highlighting the Council's outdated framework, he pointed out that UNSC remains trapped in an architecture that has remained unchanged for 8 decades. Speaking on the secrecy surrounding the Council's decisions, the Indian ambassador noted that while public disclosures are made for approved listings, details of rejections or cases placed under technical hold remain restricted to a select few, effectively functioning as an opaque veto mechanism. Calling this a disguised veto, he emphasized that such practices undermine the credibility of the Council's decisions. India has repeatedly called for comprehensive reforms in the functioning of the United Nations and the Security Council, stressing that the outdated structures and opaque decision-making processes hinder the UN's ability to fulfill its core mandate. With growing global challenges, India has emphasized that discussions alone are not enough. concrete action is needed to ensure that the UNSC reflects contemporary geopolitical realities and remains effective in maintaining international peace and security.
Decisions on listing are made public. Details pertaining to rejection or putting on technical hold of listing requests are the exclusive preserve of a select few. This is indeed a disguised veto.
Moving on. Despite government claims of economic recovery, Pakistan's markets tells a different story, with shoppers struggling against persistent inflation ahead of Ramadan. A report.
Despite government claims of economic recovery, Pakistanis continue to struggle with skyrocketing prices and stagnant wages, exposing the country's fragile economic state. As the holy month of Ramadan approaches, citizens are voicing their frustration over persistent inflation, proving that Islamabad's so-called stabilization efforts under the International Monetary Fund bailout have done little to ease daily hardships. While the Pakistani Finance Ministry boasts of a decline in consumer price inflation from 24% last year to 2.4% this January, the reality on the ground tells a different story. Essential food items remain out of reach for the common citizen, as both traders and consumers confirm that price manipulation is rampant. Adding to the crisis, traders anticipate further price hikes during Ramadan, a pattern that has become all too familiar in Pakistan's poorly regulated markets.
पिछले साल थोड़ा सा कारोबार में थोड़ी सी वो थी, अब ये कि थोड़ा सा कारोबार सेट हुआ है। महंगाई तो अपनी जगह पे, अब लोग ही अब पिछले साल सैलरियां क्या थी और अब सैलरी क्या है, तो उसमें अगर शरह निकल जाए तो एक ही तकरीबन फर्क है कि महंगाई का शरह वहीं की वहीं है। देखें ना, अगर ये चीज सस्ती हो गई, उधर मुर्गी को महंगा कर दिया, 700 रुपए पे ले गए, अंडे 250 240 चल रहे थे, अब 300 पे आ गए। रमजान आ गया ना असल में, तो रमजान की वजह से सारी चीजें महंगी हो जाती है।
With an IMF review mission set to arrive in Islamabad, Pakistan's rulers will likely tout their latest financial maneuvers as signs of progress. But for the ordinary Pakistani, the reality is clear. Economic mismanagement, political instability, and an over-reliance on foreign bailouts have left the country unable to provide even the most basic financial relief to its citizens. As Ramadan begins, the failure of Pakistan's economic policies is once again on full display, reinforcing the grim truth that for millions, survival remains a daily struggle.
The UN Special Rapporteur on Afghanistan, Richard Bennett, has called for the recognition of gender apartheid in Afghanistan as a crime against humanity. His remarks were made during the 58th session of the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, where he presented his 20-page report on the country. Bennett emphasized that the situation in Afghanistan, particularly for women, has deteriorated significantly since the Taliban regained power. He stressed the urgency of addressing the systematic oppression of women under the current regime within the framework of international law. The report highlights that since the Taliban's return to power, human rights violations in Afghanistan have worsened, with the systematic suppression of women becoming more severe. Bennett warned that the Taliban's discriminatory policies against women are becoming more entrenched, with restrictive laws such as the promotion of virtue and prevention of vice reinforcing these measures. The situation in Afghanistan remains dire, with women and girls bearing the brunt of the Taliban's oppressive policies. As Richard Bennett pointed out, the international community must act quickly and decisively to reverse these injustices and push for greater protection and rights for Afghan women. Bangladeshi students who were at the forefront of last year's protests that ousted the then Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina have launched a new political party to contest in the upcoming general elections likely to be held by the end of the year. Nahid Islam, a key student leader of the group, recently resigned from Muhammad Yunus's interim government to lead the new party. Announcing the launch of the party, Islam said the ideologies of the existing political parties do not represent all the people of the country. Last year, Islam was one of the leaders of the movement against Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's policies under the banner of anti-discrimination student movement. As the opposition parties and Islamist groups joined them, the student movement turned into a larger anti-Hasina movement. After the military sided with him, Hasina was forced to flee the country on August 5th. Days later, the military and protesting groups propped up Muhammad Yunus as the unelected leader of Bangladesh. Sri Lankan President Anura Dissanayake met with Japanese Ambassador Akio Isomata and announced that Japan will invest in Sri Lanka's digital transformation and port development. During the meeting, the Japanese diplomat stated that the efforts have been made to include Sri Lanka in the Security Cooperation Assistance Program recently launched by the government of Japan, the communication division of the presidency confirmed. Isomata further reaffirmed his country's commitment to support Sri Lanka's digital transformation program and highlighted Tokyo's intention to invest in port and aviation-related projects and digitalization initiatives. The island nation's economy crumbled under a severe foreign exchange crisis in 2022, but has recovered faster than expected after Colombo secured a $2.9 billion International Monetary Fund bailout program in March 2023 and completed a $20 billion debt restructuring in December. India's Uttarakhand state is rapidly advancing in development with key initiatives in transportation, infrastructure and urban growth. The Char Dham rail project, aimed at connecting sacred shrines, promises to enhance connectivity, reduce travel times and boost the region's economy while preserving its natural beauty. Take a look.
Indian state Uttarakhand, where the Himalayas stand tall, sacred rivers whisper legends, and faith weaves a divine tapestry, rightfully called Dev Bhumi, the land of the gods. However, this land is now recognized not only for its breathtaking natural beauty, but also for its rapidly advancing development initiatives. With progress in roads, railways, air connectivity, energy, water supply, urban development, sports, education and healthcare, Uttarakhand is scripting a new chapter of holistic growth. To improve connectivity, the Uttarakhand government has launched several initiatives in the transportation sector. With support from the central government, the state has linked remote areas to major roads under the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana. Urban roads have also seen significant upgrades, further boosting connectivity and stimulating the local economy.
पहले जाने में काफी समय लगता था, अब जो है कम समय में आदमी पहुंच जा रहा है, रोडों की स्थिति काफी अच्छी हो गई।
The Char Dham rail project marks another milestone in Uttarakhand's development journey. This ambitious initiative aims to connect the four sacred shrines Yamunotri, Gangotri, Kedarnath and Badrinath, making travel more convenient for pilgrims and tourists alike. As part of this project, a 125-kilometer single-track broad-gauge railway line is being rapidly constructed from Rishikesh to Karnaprayag. The route will include 12 stations, 17 tunnels and 18 bridges navigating through rugged mountains and rivers. Once completed, it will reduce travel time from Rishikesh to Karnaprayag from the current 8 hours to just 3 hours. Beyond enhancing accessibility, this project is expected to drive economic growth in the region, benefiting both locals and visitors. By balancing development with nature, the Uttarakhand government's initiatives are set to position the state among the most progressive regions in the country.
ये धामों को मिलने वाली ये रोडें इतनी सुंदर और अच्छी बनी है कि हर आदमी को इतना आसान हो रहा है कि अब आने जाने में पहले जो 6 घंटे या 8 घंटे लगते थे, अब लोग बहुत कम समय में उसको वो कर रहे हैं.
That's all in tonight's edition. We will see you same time next week. Have a great weekend. Good night.